Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Imam Nawawi in his 40 hadith mentions a hadith found in the collection of Ibn Majah, which is an authentic hadith narrated by Sahal ibn Sa'd as-Sa'di. The Prophet ﷺ said, a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked, "Lead me to an action which, if I do it, Allah will love me and people will also love me." And the Prophet ﷺ gave him advice and said, be indifferent to worldly things and Allah will love you, and be indifferent to that which people possess and people will love you. This hadith contains some marvelous advice on the subject, which is called in Arabic terminology zuhud, which could be translated as it was here as indifference to the things of this world. Zuhud means that we are not distracted from our goals as Muslims by excessive concerns with worldly matters. But zuhud, when the person who practices zuhud is called zahid, is a person who has priorities in his or her life. The true zahid, or the person who is trying to have this characteristic, has priorities. They understand that our lives as Muslims are journeys. We are on a journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they look to the long-term goals at the end of this journey, which is, of course, to arrive in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having led a life acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be rewarded in paradise eternally. And so that is the goal, the journey of every Muslim. And so if we understand that our priority is this journey, then we will not be unduly distracted by things which we find on the way. If I'm on a long trip, I may sometimes pause on my way. I may, for example, need food and drink, and I may stop to buy what I need. I may stop to enjoy myself for a brief time. The Prophet ﷺ gave an example in hadith found in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, that the way the Prophet ﷺ's life is in this world is like a person who is resting in the shade. They stop during the hottest part of the day, rest in the shade, and then they get up and continue their journey. And that is the way that the Muslim should truly try to have as their attitude in this life. That we can stop and enjoy what is permitted for us in this life. We can have enjoyment. We can sometimes participate in matters in this life, but not excessively so that it distracts us from our ultimate goal. So we should try to spend as much time as possible in Islamic knowledge and worship, and making a conscious effort to observe Islamic behaviors in all aspects of our life. Every Muslim sometimes has to sacrifice things which they love or which they are attracted to. All of us have lusts and desires, things which we want. Sometimes we see that those things which we want are not permitted. And then as Muslims, it is our duty to sacrifice those desires and to give them up. But the level of Iman, which the Prophet ﷺ is talking about, is a level beyond that, which is that we are so concerned with our goal as Muslims that we really aren't concerned with those things at all. So we won't feel that it's a sacrifice to give up something. Perhaps somebody newly became a Muslim. Or perhaps they were a sinful Muslim and they were enjoying a life, for example. For example, people enjoy alcohol, or perhaps they enjoyed illicit relationships with the opposite sex. And so when they realized that it's their duty, they gave those things up, perhaps reluctantly. Perhaps they still loved those things, but they gave them up for the sake of Allah, and they made a sacrifice. And it was difficult for them. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us strong faith, it becomes that we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and love obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much that we don't care about those things anymore. and they become no longer a distraction and something which we are concerned with. So I'm not concerned with too much of those matters anymore, but I'm concentrated on my goal. This does not mean that we do not have any worldly ambitions as Muslims. This does not mean that, for example, I can't try to be successful in my education and career, and perhaps I'm in a business, perhaps I'm in a job in which I am rewarded for my hard work with good pay. This does not mean that, in this case, I am concentrating on the world. As a Muslim who's practicing zuhud, my ultimate goal is the pleasure of Allah. And so I have found worldly goals which are permitted to me in Islam. I've strived to help myself, to maintain myself, to become independent of needing other human beings to support me, and also able to support my family, to help my relatives, neighbors, and needy Muslims by my wealth. So, as a concerned Muslim who is not overly concerned and distracted with the life of this world, I look at my career and my goals in, for example, money and wealth and possessions as a means to pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a means of purifying myself, devoting myself to worship. So, for example, if I become a wealthy man, I see that I can give in charity, I can build mosques, I could build perhaps hospitals, I could help many people throughout the world. I could help spread Islam. I could use my money and donate it, for example, to the spread of Islam, for example, by the new technology of satellite television, for example, or other things that I could do for the sake of Allah. And so in this case, my using my time to make money is a good thing, and it's part of my ibadah or worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not distracting me from my goal of serving my Creator, but actually it's helping me. And even if I'm a common person, and I really have no ambition to become wealthy, but at least I don't want to be a person who has to go and beg for help from others. I don't want to bother people and be a burden on them, because that's going to bring a difficulty in our brotherhood and relationship. But by being able to support myself, and making enough money to take care of myself, and do my duty toward my family, and support them, then I can feel good about myself, and I can also spend my time in worship and thankfulness, gratitude for the good things which I have received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes we have ambitions in this life. We have goals. We want to achieve worldly things, money and position, and other permitted goals in Islam. But sometimes we try hard and do not succeed. Sometimes we fail to get to the highest level. Maybe in my education, I tried my best and didn't quite make it to the highest level. Or maybe in my career, even though I've worked very hard, there are other people who advance farther and faster than me. But having the attitude of zuhud means that all I'm concerned about is that I have done my best in halal activities, and I'm trying to serve my Creator, and that is my ultimate goal. So if I fail, knowing that I have done my best, I'm satisfied and I accept that from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if I have trials and tribulations, poverty, bad health, and things which happen to me, I will accept that, and that does not make me give up. It doesn't make me give up hope. It doesn't make me give up striving and trying to better myself Islamically, and also to work for those goals that I have in my career or business or education or other permitted Islamic goals. So this is an attitude which we have of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ said, by having this attitude, it causes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to love us also. And so if we seek Allah's love, then we should have this attitude which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And of course, the only way we can truly practice this practice and live this kind of life is, of course, if Allah does love us and have compassion for us and guide us to this life and give us the strength to resist temptation and to resist the distractions of this world. But we have to not be excessive in this practice. There are many people in the Muslim community who have a misconception about what zuhud is. And they think that the person who is practicing zuhud is a shaykh who has totally cut himself off from life and lives like a monk. Perhaps lives in one room doesn't work, only begs, only receives charity, spends all of his time in prayer and doesn't take care of even cleanliness or other matters. Some of these people who claim to be practicing zuhud, for example, may be wealthy men, and yet they walk around wearing clothes which are full of holes. Or even though they could afford to drive a beautiful automobile, they drive around in an ugly automobile to pretend as if they are among the poor, when really they're very rich people. And that is being insincere. It is not correct in Islam to be excessive. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ didn't allow us to spend all of our night in prayer and avoid our wives, for example, or husbands. He did not allow us to spend every day fasting, but in fact ordered us to fast a few days extra every month if possible, or at the most to fast every other day. Did not allow us to do things which are going to be harmful to our health in the long run. The life of a monk is not the true zuhud. But the true Muslim is the person who, even if he has this property, even if he has wealth and success, his heart is not attached to that wealth and success, but he sees it as a tool to be used to achieve his real goal, his long-term success in this life and in the hereafter. So many times people who are wealthy feel that this wealth is keeping them far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's distracting them, it's tempting them, and that is the kind of person who needs to donate his wealth to others so it does not lead him astray. But if we can use our wealth in a beneficial way, then it is perfectly permitted in Islam. And in fact, it is encouraged for us to strive to obtain whatever we are able to obtain, which is permitted and halal. Wa jazakum Allahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Oh